When is a branch too thin to air layer? That is a question I've received a couple of times under one of my air layering videos. Now, that is a difficult question because I don't really know. As far as I know, the structural integrity of the trunk is the most important factor determining whether you can still successfully air layer. That being said, a 1-year-old whip or younger will not have the structure in place to support layering, probably. Therefore, I'm going to try and layer this 2-year-old branch. And I'm going to do it the same way as I always do. I just take a knife, I make 2 horizontal cuts, maybe 1/2 inch to 1 inch apart. Then I'm going to apply some rooting hormone on the top cut. I'm going to scrape away the cambium on the area where I've just removed the bark. And then I'm going to plant it up. And for a substrate for air layering, I'm not going to use my regular substrate this time. And the reason is just, this is a very thin branch. It is not very strong. 1 wind gust and it might break off if there's a heavy pot attached to it. So this is just going to be done with sphagnum moss. I am going to use a little bit of rooting hormone because that will aid in faster root development. And I think with this small one, I want fast roots. And we're in the 2nd week of June. Let's see how long this takes to root. But I think mid-July, this should be ready to separate. The end of July, and look at all this growth. But I'm going to admit, I've cheated. And what have I cheated on? I took a peek. And because I took a peek, I know now that this video has been a success. And I can tell the viewer, yeah, these very thin 1-year-old branches, they also air layer. Because I opened the plastic a little bit and I looked at the sphagnum moss and look what I see there and there and there and there. There is little roots everywhere. So let's separate this and get it potted up and be done with this video. This is so cool. You know, for me, the magic of air layering never gets old. I am always really, really happy when this works, when the roots come out. And it's almost like a tiny little miracle in a pot. Look at that. Now this is something that I do. It is recommended to not, but I do not like sphagnum moss in my pots. Which is why I also don't actually really like using it for air layering. It's a problem because it is such good stuff for air layering. But this stays so wet. So I want to take this off before I plant it up. Most people recommend leave it on because the roots are really brittle. And they are really brittle. But you know what? Better 1 or 2 broken roots than a completely rotten root ball. That's my philosophy. And clearly, this is not too thin to air layer. Hey there, can we very quickly talk about air layers, potting them up, and my philosophy about taking air layers. What you'll notice very quickly on my channel, if you look at air layering videos, I typically use a pot that I open on the side, I put it around a branch, and then I fill it up with substrate. Now, why do I do that? Well, because if I don't do that and I use something different, like what I have here, this is just old baggies. And this is sphagnum moss. Sphagnum moss is the best substrate for air layering, if you can believe the internet. Now you don't need it, but on this one I did use it. And I just spent 10 minutes teasing it out from between these roots. Now why don't I wait longer for these roots to grow? Well, first of all, in a plastic baggie, if you use that, you get the roots all coiled up as a big ball around the sphagnum. You can't remove the sphagnum anymore. So that's one of the reasons that I do it. But also because these root tips are really, really strong. They can grow 10, 15 centimeters in a matter of a week or 2 weeks. So as soon as I see growing tips, I take it off. At that point, the water influx stops. The roots are forced to grow and the tree will push out new roots very, very quickly, aiding in establishing it in a pot. Now, what pot do I use? I straight away go into a pot with normal substrate and I fill it up deep enough so I can squeeze the roots in without disturbing them. I need to remove a little bit of substrate. And after I've done that, I make little holes in the rim of the pot. And then I push a little bit of wire through these little holes so I can attach the branches to the pot. Now make sure that you don't disturb these young roots at this stage. What do we do with these long branches? Well, to be honest, I leave the long branches on. Just take the point of a scissor or a knife, drill it through the rim of the pot. Let's see whether this goes. Yeah, there we go. That's one. And let's take a second one. And now I can just put a bit of wire through these little holes in the pot rim. One. And back up on the other side. And I can wire the branches against the rim of the pot so it can't move. That will in the end stop the tree from moving around in the pot and the roots from breaking. Of course, this I do 3 times at least, because 3 points of connection ensures that it can't move anymore. 2, and it can still wiggle in a plane. 3, it can't wiggle anymore. Then you just slide the plant in, you connect it, and only then do you fill up the pot with substrate. You don't want the roots to break while you're connecting this. And now that at least 3 branches are secured, that is when I can fill it up with substrate. After this is so stable in the pot. After this I water it and then it is stable in the pot. And now that this is potted up, of course there's only very few roots on this, right? These roots do need a week or 2 to really colonize the pot. In 2 weeks time the first roots could be popping out at the bottom here, but only if I don't put it out in hot weather. Right now it is very humid here, it's been raining for 2 days and temperatures is only 22, 23 Celsius. That would be around 70 Fahrenheit. So it is not hot anymore. You see, it is actively growing. That means that these roots are now already responding to the fact that it is separated and it will be colonizing this pot. But this will stay in a shed, out of the sun, out of the wind for at least a week or 2. I'm not going to keep this overly wet because the roots will take up the water, whatever is there, but I am going to water it just like a normal plant. A few of these leaves might crisp up and they might fall off, but that doesn't matter. I'm going to leave everything on because dropping of leaves is a survival mechanism of the plant. Every leaf that's dropped, that means that it didn't have enough water, but the branch itself might not die. Therefore, if I just leave it on and it roots, new buds might pop on all these branches and I can just continue growing it out. If not, I'll slowly see these branches dry in. No worry, then I can still clip them off. That's why I am leaving all of this on, as long as I'm certain that I can keep it stable in the pot and there's lots and lots of new root tips on the air layer. That is how I do it. I know that some of the tips are controversial and I know that some people will say you are risking people's air layers, and maybe I do. If you have enough air layers, give it a try on one. See whether it works for you and drop me a comment down below. Well, and there you have it. This little future clump is all potted up. I'll now just let it root for the season and be done with it. And with that, I'm also done with this video showing you that yes, very thin branches, even 1-year-old branches, can be air layered. Hope that answered your question. See you next time. This was Jelle.